webinar of the year 2021 of the special interest community, the Women in Geoscience and Engineering. My name is Adeline Parent, and I am part of the Women in Geoscience and Engineering community, and today I will be your moderator. And you can find us, the WGE community, to make it short, on the eage.org website or on LinkedIn. So before the presentation begins, I would like to introduce the presenter, Dr. Marina Corradini. Dr. Corradini is an Italian seismologist currently working as a communication officer of the Euro-Mediterranean Seismological Center, or as you are going to say it in French, the Centre Sismologique Euro-Méditerranéen. In her day-to-day life, she works at the intersection between seismology and public outreach, in particular on issues related to earthquake early warning, earthquake pre-preparedness, and citizen seismology. Born and raised in Naples, in the south of Italy, Dr. Corradini has always been driven by her curiosity to explore new places, meet new people, understand their languages and habits and way of thinking. As you can find her on LinkedIn if you want, and what I can tell you is that she was in different countries because of her education and work, but more she lives far from her country and more she discovers the beauty in it every time she goes back. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Dr. Marina Corradini, who is going to talk about overcoming barriers in science. Marina,
hi everyone. Yeah, thank you, Adelina, for your warm introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this seminar. I'm so glad to be here today, to have been invited by the EAGE to discuss with you all the progress that has been made in recent years to overcome the barriers that are pushing women away from science. So I'm sharing my screen now. Okay, can you properly see my screen?
Looks good.
Great.
Yes, no problem.
So, all right, we can start. Science has a diversity problem, meaning that certain groups of individuals are underrepresented in STEM, which is the acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Let's look at the statistics from the US. About 25% of the US workforce population currently live with a disability. But when we look at the population working in a STEM-related job, only 9% are people with a disability. Women account for the 47% of the US workforce population, but when we look at the population working in a STEM-related job, only 24% are women. LGBTQIA+ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersexual, asexual, or any other sexual identity. Of all students enrolled in a STEM discipline at the university level, about 8% identify themselves as sexual minorities. 4 years from enrollment, the dropout rate of sexual minorities is higher than the dropout rate of heterosexual students. And last but not least, ethnic minorities, which account for the 56% of the US population. But when we look at the students receiving a bachelor degree in a STEM discipline, only 22% are ethnic minorities. Now, these minorities in STEM are actually enrolling in STEM disciplines in much greater numbers in latest years. However, problems persist in the career progression. So something happens along the way, and these minorities drop out. I show you here this picture where we have the career progression of men grouped by ethnicity. So we have Asian, Black, Latino, or Indigenous, and white. First of all, we notice that white men tend to enroll in STEM bachelor in much greater numbers than Asian or Black, Latino, or Indigenous. The second most important thing to retrieve from this picture is that if you enroll in a STEM bachelor and you're Asian or you're white, well, then you're likely gonna make it till full professor. But if you enroll in a STEM bachelor and you're Black, Latino, or Indigenous, well, then your chances for a career progression remain stagnant as we progress up the faculty ranks. What happens to women? Actually, women enroll in STEM bachelors in much greater numbers than men. But then something happened along the way. As we progress up the faculty ranks, the proportion of women dramatically decreases. And this is what we call the leaky pipeline. Now, what is also astonishing from this picture, let me remove the man, is that if you're a woman and you're enrolling a STEM bachelor, it's going to be difficult for you to make it till full professor, right? But if you're a woman and you're also Black, Latina, or Indigenous, well, then your chances for a career progression reduce even more. So you clearly see here that discrimination intersect and reinforce each other. And in the next part of my talk, I'm going to focus specifically on women and on the barriers that are pushing women away from science, even though most of the findings I'm going to show you today stand true for the other marginalized group of individuals in STEM. Who cares? Why should we care about the underrepresentation of women in science and in general terms in society? Well, first of all, equality is a matter of basic social justice because everyone here deserves equal access to opportunities in science and in the workplace. Equality means development, innovation. Teams with a balanced numbers of men and women tend to perform better and are more productive. Equality means well-being at work, yes, because both men and women need this feeling of inclusion in the workplace. And last but not least, from a pure human resources perspective, when we spend time and effort in educating women, and once they're at the best of their expertise, they drop out, they fly away. Well, that's a waste. So now I'm gonna show you some of the obstacles that women face throughout their entire life and career, actually a chronology of obstacles from childhood throughout their adult life. But solutions exist. We can create awareness, we can increase our understanding of these issues, as I'm doing right now, giving you this talk. But we can take action, we can do something about it. And in the last part of my talk, I'm going to share with you what I think are useful resources so that we can promote equality and inclusion in our small control zone, what we can do. So let's start with this chronology of obstacles, and let's start with childhood. Gender stereotypes start following us since the earliest age. By the age of 2, children can already distinguish the gender of adults. They learn that boys and girls play with different toys and that they wear different clothes. By the age of 6, children learn that adult men and women hold different types of job into society, so that a nurse is a woman and a plumber is a man. But children are sponges. They are forged by the environment they're in. They learn about stereotypes and sexism from the outside. And one of the earliest, most pronounced difference in the experiences of boys and girls is in the play activities in which they engage. Research shows that girls tend to spend more time in structured activities, for example, a game when there's a clear set of rules and there's typically a parent leading the game, whereas boys tend to spend more time in low structured activities, for example, riding a bike, playing outdoors, getting dirty, messy. Well, it turns out high structure activities encourage feminine sex-type behaviors, such as compliance towards hierarchy and less assertiveness, whereas low structure activities encourage masculine sex-type behaviors, such as independence and assertiveness. Now, the second biggest barriers to women's career progression is the lack of role models right after stereotyping. In the development of a professional identity, role models are essential because they're a source of learning, motivation, career guidance. When women see other women in the workplace, they can project themselves, they have aspiration, and this boosts their sense of belonging. So the fact that we lack role models in science and in the workplace, this affects the perseverance of younger women. Gender bias is everywhere, and we can find it in open source platforms as well. GitHub is a platform where coders and software developers can share their codes, and they can approve and validate someone else's code. Well, it turns out that codes written by women are validated, approved at much higher rate than codes written by men on this platform. So in other terms, women are considered better coders, but this stands true only if the account identity does not explicitly reveal the gender. Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is a forum, so there are some people asking questions, some other people answer those questions. It seems that both men and women are actively engaged on this platform, but men tend to stay engaged for longer periods of time, whereas women tend to disengage sooner because of an unhealthy community. Gender bias is so pervasive that we can find it in the reference letters too. There's evidence of a qualitative differences between reference letters written for female applicants and reference letters written for male applicants. Reference letters for female applicants address all the training she'd been through, all the teaching hours she had completed, and the fact she is applying for this job, which is such a great idea, whereas reference letters for male applicants address the critical job requirements, such as his research, his skills and abilities, his career. And to make matters worse, the reference letter for female applicants tell about her personal life more than her publications or her CV, whereas reference letters for male applicants address his CV, his publications, and there's almost never mention to his personal life. Another huge discrimination in the workplace is sexual and gender-based harassment, which can include sexual solicitation and advances, pornographic images in the workplace, demanding hugs, invading personal space, making unnecessary physical contact, unwanted touching, violence, sexual assault, inappropriate staring, sexual jokes, making sexual propositions, asking questions, talking about sexual activities, making an employee dress in a sexualized way. While sexual and gender-based harassment is against the law, sexual and gender-based harassment is rooted in the perverse idea that men have privilege over women, and this culture is pushing women away from science. Yes, because science is no exception. There's evidence. How many times have you observed or heard about colleagues making inappropriate sexual remarks? Well, the answer to this question should be never. Can't remember a single one. Well, that's not what we see here with both male and female respondents. They witnessed inappropriate sexual remarks 3 or more times per week, weekly, daily. And here we are talking about sexual remarks. What about the unwanted contact? Well, for the sources of unwanted contacts for male respondents come mostly from their peers, whereas for female respondents come from their superiors. Having children affects the career progression of both men and women in STEM. Actually, a quarter of new fathers and a half of new mothers drop out of STEM after having a child, but numbers speak for themselves. The dropout of new mothers is higher than the dropout of new fathers. So we should rather speak of a motherhood penalty, because there's this cultural bias against mothers in the workplace where being a good mother is culturally incompatible with being a good worker. And studies show that female scientists with young children do not match the citation level of their male counterparts, and they find it more difficult to access research funding. So mothers are always stereotyped as less competent and less committed, and they have also the lowest chances of being recommended for hire and promotion. Actually, women without children have the highest chances of being recommended for hire, followed right after by fathers, who actually outperforms even men without children, you know, because the role of being a father is compatible with the role of being a good worker. And in the last position, we have mothers. So the fact that mothers have the lowest chances of being recommended for hire and promotion implies another huge effect and discrimination. This is actually a cascading effect we are looking at. The gender pay gap, which is the difference between the earnings of a woman compared to the earnings of a man. This is the statistics in Europe of 2018. We have Romania with the shortest pay gap and Estonia with the largest pay gap. Anyway, on average, a woman in Europe earns 15% less than a man. But here, I'm talking of all the paid work women are doing during their working day, because there's also all the unpaid care work, for example, family caring obligation, doing grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, washing machine, etc. So men tend to spend 1 hour and 41 minutes per day on unpaid care work, whereas women tend to spend 4 hours and 19 minutes per day on unpaid care work. And in this past year, we have all lived this difficult and demanding time with COVID-19 and smart working. There's evidence that this pandemic has worsened gender inequality. And if you ever wondered if women are publishing less during the pandemic, well, spoiler alert, yes, they are. For me, education is the answer. We must educate ourselves. We have to keep learning, educate the others, because if you know inequality, well, then we can fight it. If we don't know what inequalities are, we cannot tackle them. So then we can take action. We can do something about it. We can become advocate, ambassador. If you're a woman in STEM right now, especially if you're not a woman in STEM right now in the audience, you can become an ally. We need everyone here. And change begins in your control zone. There are steps that you can take in your small control zone to create change. You can start in your group of closest friends, family, colleagues. And right now I'm going to share with you several resources to create change and to promote equality and inclusion. I'm going to be quickly in showing you all these references, but don't worry, because I'm going to share with you the slides at the end of the presentation, and you can go back to the references and all the citation. So again, education is key for me, because education is where everything begins. Education is also where stereotypes, discrimination, and sexism begins. But we can break gender stereotypes in children's play activities and in children's literature and school books. We can test our own implicit bias towards not only gender, but other categories. So I invite you to test your own implicit bias on this online platform by Harvard University. There are platforms that are shedding light on microaggression, sexism, gender bias in academia, outside of academia, in our everyday life. There are platforms that are tackling the topic of harassment. There are platforms that can give you all the information about what are your rights, how you can take legal action to stop sexual violence. In Italy, we have Non Una Di Meno. There's the Spanish one, Ni Una Menos. In France, we have Dantefac. There's another platform in French that I could find also in English. And right now, if you do know other platforms in other languages, well known in your countries, please do share them with us in the chat box. This is the right time so that we can have access to all these resources. Still on harassment, we can push for policy change. Lately, the American Geophysical Union has defined sexual harassment as a scientific misconduct. Of course, this is not going to solve the problem, but this is a first step. This is something. Listen to women, believe women, speak up when women are harassed or marginalized, refuse to work with sexist colleagues, push university, scientific society, companies, enterprises to transparently update, actually, first of all, to create and then transparently update, enforce anti-sexism policies. Now let's change register. We can increase representation and visibility of women in STEM. Wikipedia is one of the primary sources of knowledge on the web. However, only 17% of Wikipedia biographies are about women. We can change that. Everyone here can become a Wikipedia editor. There are resources on how to get started. And if you're really so lazy to write all alone, you can join projects. There are projects out there to increase the representation and visibility of women in STEM. Picture Scientist is a movie about incredible women scientists and all the discriminations and microaggressions they had to face throughout their career. But if we really want to increase the representation and visibility of women, but of other marginalized individuals in STEM, we need to change the perception of what a scientist looks like. And to do that, we need to promote inclusion. And to promote inclusion, we need to create fellowships so that marginalized individuals can join STEM. And of course, then we must support fellowship. We can start mentoring programs because women find motivation through encouragement rather than challenge, as men tend to. And this is not because women are born different, but because of societal and cultural causes. We need to foster women's friendship in the workplace. Women's friendship is a source of career development, boosts this sense of belonging, is a source of workplace resilience, self-validation, and allows all the information sharing and tacit knowledge, which is so essential in science, in academia, in the workplace, more in general. We can avoid gender bias in reference letters. I leave you here tips and tricks on how to be objective when we are writing reference letters for our applicants. We can say no to males. Women experts are less well known than their male counterparts because they aren't invited to platforms that could give them the necessary public exposure. So this is a vicious circle. Women are not invited, so they are less well known. So they keep being not invited and they will continually be less well known. But we can stop that. We can organize an inclusive and diverse scientific meeting. There are resources on how to do so. And if you're really struggling right now because you can't find a woman expert in your super specific field of STEM, well, you have no excuse right now. You have platforms where you can request a woman expert in your super specific field of STEM. And you can also calculate the diversity degree of the conference or the meeting you are organizing. This is super fun, so have fun with this conference diversity distribution calculator. We can improve work-life balance. Of course, there are certain things which are out of our single control, so the paid parental leave, remote and flexible working hours, which come actually from the top, from the structure, from the society and the organization we are in, our workplace. And the presentation I'm giving you today is about what we can do in our small control zone. So what we can do to promote a better work-life balance is a support network. And there are things we can do for childcare and breastfeeding facilities in the workplace, at conferences. Of course, right now with COVID-19, conferences are virtual, but resources exist. So COVID-19 is not going to last forever, and we can start working on that. And also other resources here from the 500 Women Scientists, Simon Journeys, resources to help fathers and mothers during their journey with having children. Now, let's play this game. You can go to the European Institute for Gender Equality and pretend to be a woman living in another country, in another European country, because the condition of women change dramatically depending on the country we are looking at. So right now, I'm pretending to be a Belgian woman. So in my country, I have actually quite a high chance of graduating from university compared to men. I likely gonna earn less than a man, and I live in a country where 60% of women have experienced sexual harassment. So I invite you to look at this and to look at what would your life look like if you were born woman in another European country. Now, I'm not a Belgian woman. I'm originally from Italy. So what's my story? I come from the south of Italy, Naples. I enrolled about 10 years ago in a bachelor degree in physics. At that time, all the lecturers of the courses I had to attend to obtain my degree were white men. I only had 3 female lecturers. At that time, I also joined the Young Minds Association of the European Physical Society, an association that promotes science popularization activities, public outreach and education. And that was a turning point for me because that motivated me to pursue my passion for science communication. Anyway, I got my bachelor degree. It was quite hard because I suffered from the feeling of not belonging. I didn't feel like that was my habitat. And I've also been a victim of gender stereotypes and discrimination at the university. I kept going. I enrolled in a master's degree in physics at the University of Naples. At that time, all my lecturers were white men. I won a scholarship to do the Erasmus at the University of Madrid in Spain, and there I met only one female woman lecturer. I got my master's degree in physics, and then I decided to give it a try and enroll in a PhD program in seismology, which is another great passion of mine. And I moved to Paris, to France. My supervisors were both white men. At that time, while I was doing my PhD at the Institut de Physique du Globe de Paris, I came across an association, the Égalité Association, founded by PhD students and postdocs in my former PhD institute. And that association initiated me towards these issues of diversity, equality, and inclusion. And I could finally put a name on all of those situations that I had experienced before, but I didn't really know how to call them. What is that? I don't know. But finally, after years and years, I could eventually put a name on all those microaggressions, discriminations I was facing. Anyway, during my PhD, I won a scholarship to do some research at the Los Alamos National Lab in the US. And there, my collaborators and co-authors actually are still the white men. Today, I actually transitioned from fundamental research to science communication, and today I work as a communications officer for the Euro-Mediterranean Seismological Center. This is my team. My team is composed by seismologists, data scientists, and software developers. You see that we are only two women. The other woman is a sociologist. So yes, I've always felt so lonely in my being a woman scientist, and I lacked a lot role models throughout my entire adult life, university years, and career. I've also been on the leadership team of 500 Women Scientists, an international association which promotes diversity, equality, and inclusion in STEM. Water can fix the leaks in the pipeline. It's not up to the marginalized individuals to solve on their own the problems that we have in society and in science. If you have a privilege, if you have privilege right now, acknowledge your privilege. Those who have succeeded in science and in many other fields have not done so entirely due to their own innate brilliance. Statistically speaking, just being male will automatically give you a leg up. If you also happen to be white, straight, and able, your chances at success are even higher. So I leave you with further resources about statistics and readings about all the topics we have discussed today. And this presentation would not have been possible without the Egalité Group, 500 Women Scientists, which initiated me towards these issues, and all the friends and colleagues that are accompanying me throughout this journey. Science has diversity problems, but progress has been made in the latest year. There are obstacles that are pushing women away from science, and this stands true also for the other marginalized individuals. I've shown you today some of these obstacles. Solutions exist. We can do something about it. We can move further step by step. We can take action. There are resources to create change in our small control zone. And I leave the floor right now to your questions, your comments. This is right now your moment to speak up and discuss the topics we have tackled today, and also especially the topics we couldn't discuss today for matter of time. Thank you very much.
Okay.